Good evening, sir. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Very good, and I'm really sorry. I just forgot. So thank you for the reminder. I was busy and then simply forgot. I'm very sorry.
No worries. I just realized, so I emailed you, and I thought maybe I'll just check what's happening.
Okay.
So, how are you doing? Your health-wise, all good in Germany, in Hanover?
Yes, more or less. I mean, for me, it's almost the same because I retired 1.5 years ago, and so I'm at home anyway. And
Okay.
of course, I miss my friends, and I miss, let's say, going to a bar, to a restaurant, things like that.
Okay.
Uh, and of course, I'm happy when it's over, but there are others who are more
Yeah.
concerned than I am. So,
Yeah.
what about you?
We are also homebound, so we just either go out maybe once or twice a week to buy groceries very nearby. Other than that, it's home confinement for all of us, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So the way I viewers, Herr Claussen has been a lecturer at Leibniz Universitat, and he has more than 25 years of work experience, primarily at Bosch. He is also a GISMA alumnus. He completed his MBA, I believe, in 2005. Do you want to add anything to that, sir?
Okay.
Would you like to add anything to it in terms of your experience?
Mm, yeah, I would not, let's say, overestimate the fact that I'm a lecturer at this moment. So I have had my first lecture, and it was quite an experience to have it online.
Hmm.
um, Other than that, I'm working as a mentor and as a coach. Um,
Okay.
so this is basically what I do as a retired person.
Okay. So you completed your MBA in 2005 and I completed it in 2013. How do you view MBA as a course in Germany?
um, MBA, when I did my exams and when I um, graduated with my MBA, I must say MBA was hardly known in
Yeah.
Germany. That was in 2005.
Yeah.
And also afterwards, when we joined Bosch again, then afterwards, and when we hired people, I did not have the feeling that really everyone knew what an MBA is. So at least the managers has to ask, what does that mean? Is it good? And is it an advantage and so on. So by now, people know what MBA means, what it is. Um, those who do not have an MBA themselves try to translate to what they know from their German education, which is called Betriebswirtschaftslehre, which is not completely the same. Um, they like it. Is it a huge asset in Germany? I wouldn't say so. So if you have, let's say, it is by far not the same as if you would have a PhD or something like that. Of course, that is only what I can say about the company that I know, which is Bosch. It may be completely different if you have international companies. So let's say, for instance, American companies who have subsidiaries in Germany and hire MBAs in Germany. So that could be completely different, but that's speculation, and I don't know.
Okay. I mean, I even worked in Adidas in Germany in Herzogenrock, and there too, what I saw, sir, was that probably a PhD had a better chance than an MBA. So,
Yeah, I would
so
confirm that.
yeah, so PhDs are generally more valued in Germany rather than MBAs as a degree. So maybe the
Yes.
times are changing. So you spent a lot of time doing product management at Robert Bosch. How do you see that has evolved? well, people talk about product managers or product management currently?
Okay, I was, of course, lucky, and because of my education, I was an engineer,
Mm-hmm.
and then did the MBA, and that was perfectly what the idea of the MBA at GISMA in Germany was, that you have engineers and add an additional education as an MBA. So this is exactly what you need when you want to be a product manager. So you have to understand the market, and you have to understand also the development and partly also the operations. How did that develop over time? I was suffering very much from the fact that processes are digitalized. For instance, in Bosch, you use SAP. And the idea is that you put very much intelligence of the process in this automatic process, which is for a person who likes to be flexible and very, very difficult thing, especially if you have a software that does not tolerate any deviations. So you have to be very, very structural. You have to know almost everything by heart. So that means that you are not the master of the process any longer. So what happens is that the knowledge, the intelligence of the process shifts to those who design the process, and not to those who run the process. This was something which has obvious advantages, that you need different personnel for that, different employees, yet that you can be more efficient. But that is true if you have very stable processes. So in industrial production, for instance, I can imagine that. So when we talk about my job, from my education, I'm a cartographer, and I dealt very much with digital maps in Bosch, especially for navigation.
Right.
So in principle, something like Google Maps.
Right.
But they are by far not standardized in a way as you would have that in a production where you count screws and spare parts and I don't know what.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's quite obvious that I didn't like it.
Okay.
How did it evolve? And it exactly evolves in that direction. And I have also in another lectures which I gave at the university in Hanover, we talked about knowledge management, we talked about innovation, and also about quality. So, and there are people, let's say more in the scientific world, who say, in principle, we don't have to care about quality, all this kind of stuff. We put it in the process. So we put everything in the process, and then, but this was beyond my time at Bosch. The next step you are discussing now is artificial intelligence. So what? But it has nothing to do with intelligence. The only thing that you do is you make you train or to make your process train themselves. Yeah. So in principle they learn. Yeah. Okay, if it goes well, fine. Mm-hmm. But if you make any mistake, you have very little means to correct it. Mm-hmm. Or I would say it's you have a hard time. Can compare it a little bit to the discussion about autonomous vehicles. Yeah. Of course, everyone is anxious about that, mm-hmm. But at the same time, we all know that the technology is far more capable of doing the right things and can react much faster than we could. Still, we don't trust it. So it still has to prove that it works. And there, many things have to be done before it really works. And if it fails, then it fails probably very drastically and very dramatically with major consequences. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's a little bit the the discussion also how product management, product development evolves. It will go in that direction which we see. We won't be able to stop it, but there are many lessons to be learned, and it will take time, and there will be failures in the meantime, and so on. And to be very honest, at the age of 61, I'm glad that I don't have to do all this and to develop it and to make sure that it works and so on. So I'm fine.
Okay. So one thing for sure in this evolution, sir, is people also talk a lot about consumer experience, especially in digital product management.
Yeah.
How do you see something like that?
Yeah, and that is a little bit contradictory. What I experience in my job is we ask the customer long time before the launch of a product to give us a specification so that we could do exactly what he wanted. So what was almost excluded is that, let's say, 3 months or 4 months before the product launch, he could change anything. So that led to very, very long lead time. And that is a situation where you risk to lose out in competition. So, and now we have the whole thing about user experience, customer wish, all of that, which makes a lot of sense, by the way, and we also know it from our MBA education, that those who can do, let's say, kind of mass customization, things like that they have a real advantage. So, and that is today somewhat contradictory. On one side, you have very stable processes, and on the other side, you have very, let's say, flexible wishes, customer experience, and so on. Yeah. By the way, that reminds me very much to the time when we started the data production at Teleatlas, which was a joint venture between DO Teleatlas and Bosch. Yeah. Where at the end there was a part, data production, that was very, we call it steady and structural. Mm-hmm. And then there was a wall. The CEO actually called it a wall. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, you had the product development and productizing part. Mm-hmm. And that had the labels fast and flexible. So now imagine you have to be fast and flexible, and on the other side of the wall, there is somebody who has to be steady and structural, which makes sense. But to manage this wall, by the way, the CEO committed that was a failure, or what was a mistake to call that a wall. Mm-hmm. Whatever you call it, in the middle, you have to manage this clash, whatever, this situation, where you have to make out of a very stable situation, very stable foundation, to make something that makes the customer happy. And I think just at this moment when I talk about it, comes to my mind again. I think this is exactly the situation that we are facing. Okay. Because on one side, because I'm not saying that the one thing is correct and the other one is wrong. No, you need both. And you have to make sure, and you have to manage the thing in between, the interface. Okay. And that's not an easy one, I think.
Yeah. So you mentioned artificial intelligence, and especially when we talk about Industry 4.0, things like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, 3D printing, they are redefining how manufacturing is done. How is Industry 4.0 having its evolution in Germany, especially if you can think in terms of Robert Bosch, which is a big name? How are they coming up and evolving in this Industry 4.0?
That's, from various points of view, it's hard for me to judge. Mm-hmm. First, because I never was in charge of production or never worked in production or have an idea how it works. And my impression is, let's say, whatever makes sense to improve, to become more efficient, to increase quality, and that is all measured very well. And then you have tons of KPIs who do that, and whenever you find a way to improve there, you do that. When I say so, then I'm a strong believer that the Industry 4.0 is not disruptive, is not a disruptive thing, but is something that evolves. And that's it, my second point. I'm really not sure what Industry 4.0 is. I have heard that, of course, 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And I have talked to many people about that, and there are many opinions, but I have never heard a definition of Industry 4.0. And once I went to, at the Hanover Fair, I went to an IBM stand and then said, okay, you have signposted here Industry 4.0. You are the person who can explain it to me. And he said, no, I cannot, but I can tell you what we think what Industry 4.0 is. And then he explained his software, his processes. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I do not believe that there is, for me, it's a buzzword. Of course, it says something about in which direction it goes and more digitalization and all of that. But if you really want to talk about Industry 4.0, I think we have to agree what it is. I think that my main point is also with artificial intelligence. We have in the mid of 80s, we have talked about artificial intelligence. That we have the problem we had then in cartography was to detect and to interpret maps so that you could update them automatically. So there we had also systems that we trained and so on. We call that artificial intelligence. So now all of a sudden the term pops up and everyone believes we have invented that in 2018 or something. No, the same. It's a process. It's an evolving thing, of course. What I would agree is that when we talk about all these things, about these developments, that most of them are accelerated. So we would not have expected that it goes so far and so fast. And yeah, the famous example of a smartphone, nobody has seen that years ago and so on. So all that is happening, but still in a continuous process. It's still not, most of it is not disruptive.
So all these technologies, sir, be it artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, blockchain, so there has to be some sort of reskilling for people, both from the universities as well as at companies, so that an upcoming workforce can adapt to these technologies and work and make sense out of it. How is education at the Hanover University or anywhere else, how are they approaching things like this? Is there a lot of demand for these technologies and skills?
Yes, I do not have very deep insight. I'm alumnus of the university, but it's quite some time that I adapted and then networked a lot with them. So I know a little bit. I know about excellence clusters, for instance, in mechanical engineering. I also, in my field in geodesy, cartography, I know that there are a few corporations with the university. I think that improved a lot. When I studied and when I worked used to work at the university, it was always said that if you write your PhD, then you put it in the drawer and nobody has any benefit from it. So that has changed quite a bit. Could it still improve? Definitely yes. Definitely yes. What does the industry? I mean, until recently it was anyway the case that simply did not have enough people. So what they do strategically, when they, for instance, they founded a department for, that I'm now referring to Bosch, a department for Internet of Things. So then they look among their 400,000 employees, take the best who know exactly what is needed for the IoT thing, and put them together. So that is basically what they do. And then, of course, whenever it's possible, they make sure that they get the best people from the universities. And that's easy for the Volkswagens, for the Continentals, for the BMW and so on, because everyone wants to be there. So it's an easy game for them to find them.
Okay. So one last question. So your area has been cartography, and how has digitalization impacted cartography in general?
Can you repeat the digitalization?
Yes,
the impact on
impact on cartography.
Put everything upside down. Yeah, and maybe it sounds sometimes a little bit arrogant. Yesterday, I talked to the students and I said, when I studied here, we called it just geodesy. Today, it's called geodesy and geoinformation.
Mm-hmm.
Say there was no geoinformation; we invented it, and that's actually true. And it was because there was the interest, not to say that the pressure of the industry. At that time, it was the development of car navigation system. It really boosted the development of digital maps. And I'm not so sure if things like Google Maps and all of that would exist. So Google, for instance, at the beginning was a customer of Teleatlas. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a little bit arrogant to say, yeah, we have invented that. Just imagine that was not there. We were navigating with paper maps, and that holds true for everything. And there was a TV show, and they interviewed me, and they said, okay, but it's very nice what you are doing here, and it was a scientific show, and then where are the limits? And I said, yeah, because at that time we put everything on CD, even the CD was necessary to launch the navigation system. Before they used tapes, and it took minutes to download the information and so on. And I said, yeah, well, if I imagine if I would go hiking in the mountains and would have my map and on a CD, there I would probably prefer paper maps. But only a few years later, okay, 30 years later, whatever, everyone has, of course, a smartphone and does this hiking and so on. So it's again, you have this exponential development of things. And you can take any information. We were talking at that time, and still today talking about information systems. So what you do to any information, you add the third or another dimension, which is the location.
Yeah.
So it's everything you do is location based. And to take the recent example, if you want to know how many corona infects we have in which corner of your country and so on, you do that by pushing the button, and then you get the information. Yeah. This is all very self-evident, and everyone today would say, yeah, what's so special about that? Mm-hmm. No? Take into account where we come from, I think it's quite exciting what happened.
Yeah, especially in the area of maps, you mentioned Google Maps. So there is Nokia's unit Here Map, which is running as a separate entity. After once they sold out their phone business, Here Maps has been driving Nokia, and I mean you have Yahoo Maps and other places as well.
I have another anecdote from when I studied. The university participated in a space mission, and the idea was to take photographs, remote photographs,
Mhm.
and they wanted to produce maps 1 to 50,000 scale, which is quite small, 1 to 50,000, for less developed countries. So there are many countries which were just not mapped, and so. And then they came back and said, yeah, we have now a terabyte of data. First of all, they had to explain what a terabyte is. And they said, that is so much data that does not fit on our computers. And we will never ever be able to process all this data. So maybe we will process 10% of it and show some examples and show you the maps.
Mhm.
And that was, I think, in 89 or so.
Okay, that's long
So
time back, about 30 years.
and today you can in every corner of the world you look at Google Maps and can look in the backyard of every any property, and yeah,
Cool.
I find it amazing.
It is, especially the area of maps, satellite navigation, and everything. You're right, it has turned upside down. Great, sir. Your perspectives have been good. I really like the information that you have shared. I hope in
Yeah.
future we can touch base on some other topics as well. Thank you. Thanks for your time today. Vielen Dank.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye bye.